Been really enjoying the accountability from having daily shop update videos, so I'm gonna keep the ball rolling today. A couple little things this morning. Actually, I woke up feeling like I had had a bad dream, didn't want to get out of bed, just felt like curling up in a ball. So, compassion, number one lesson for me lately, and just being gentle with myself. And I did think through a couple things where the day before I'd calculated all the liabilities in terms of all the outstanding balances owing on lines of credit. And it's a manageable amount, it's not a big deal. But, keeping cash flow in mind, you got to be paying those things down. Interest is being paid on those. So this morning, the big improvement I made on those, I put the interest amount on the top of all the columns. And I'd done that with a previous personal loan and calculated out month-to-month interest because no one was calculating that out for me. So I had already figured out some of that methodology, and then I also put the credit limit on each account. So then I can have an easy calculation of how much credit available, how much credit's being used. And actually the really interesting thing I learned today, the business credit card, the interest rate is actually lower than both lines of credit from the credit union, which, usually credit unions, they're very competitive in certain ways. So it's just a matter of those lines of credit are old and being self-employed. Last time I reached out to renegotiate the rates or ask if they could be improved, because the ones at the one on my personal account, which never gets used, is over 20% interest. And I used to think of it as being 16%, but since rates have gone up, that's a lot higher. So managing that, and that one always gets paid off quick, within the month. The one on the business account, sometimes, there can always be a balance on that at times, depending on what the cash flow is. Right now, sitting on quite a few receivables and looking at updating our terms and how to update that and put that included in a second page with invoices in terms of updating our terms of, there's a word for it. Anyhow, shop stuff. So this thing here, this blower, did a bunch of work refurbing it. It had some dents and scrapes and junk motor on it. So took this thing apart years ago. This past year, sanded the paint off and made a few other repairs. Thinking about a way to do just a quick paint job, and that way if it sits outside, it's not going to get rusty. Maybe it'll get some light rust and be able to just have another coat of paint put on it, put into the service, because it's for our own use, it's not for someone else, so it's just a matter of what our own standards are. The long-term intention for this would be removing dust particles, grinding, sanding, stuff like that. And right now, there's one of the lean principles, don't store anything in your workspace. Have a spot for your junk. So this thing right now, because it doesn't have an actual purpose, is technically junk. It's just sitting there. It's not like nuts and bolts that are being used on a regular basis. Things long-term project. And other thing we did yesterday is clean up a bunch of material on, she got these two stacking, what the heck, I don't know, stacking crate. We got these things here that stack, and there's a whole bunch of material. Actually, you can see little bits here, little bits there, and all this stuff down here. Looking for a short-term home that doesn't take up much as far as footprint. We had a bunch of these stacked up, maybe 4 or 5 of them stacked up, and that blower was actually on the very top because it didn't fit within the bin. So just thinking about where to put some stuff that keeps it out of the way, keeps it accessible. Because one thing with inventory, it gets lost. You don't know where to look for things easily, or it takes a lot of work to dig things out, and the inventory doesn't get used, it just sits. So keeping that in mind. Other thing, cut some material yesterday for the TIG welding bench, which we've looked at in previous days, and did a little more work on, actually found some material for the belt sander stand and a couple things. It just had some soapstone marks that said, hey, keeping, setting this aside, and then clean those parts up, deburred. There's some dross from plasma cutting, and clean that stuff off, put them on the work in progress cart over there. And yeah, a couple little things wrapping up. So yeah, but just mainly shop projects. Worked on the business canvas yesterday, realized still too much information because I went back to the email after sending the first one, and it was just to be a few concise details on there. So it's still probably too broad. So I'm going to go revisit that today. And also yesterday talked a lot about scheduling. If you don't schedule your days, it's easy to get off track. So really looking at scheduling, doing more exercise. This morning when I came down to the shop, I skipped rope first thing. That felt really great. Got winded. And yeah, so there's this Near and Far website, Near IL, I think it's the guy's name. Anyhow, some good YouTube videos. I downloaded a template and I think that's going to work in Excel. It was a Google Doc, and Google Docs sometimes are slow for spreadsheets, I find. So hopefully that technology improves, because at one point I was hoping to have a Google Doc for recording hours and to have one on the shop floor and have another one upstairs and everything would be live. But it was just too slow. It did not work. It was just not a viable solution. It would have been nice if it had worked, but right now, we're still using the paper clipboard, recording things on there, which is nice because there's a lot of flexibility in terms of what details can be added to a sheet that sometimes can take a long time if there's not a quick and easy way to put it into a spreadsheet. Mind you, if everyone's got editing capability of a spreadsheet, it's easy to add a column to put more notes. But just slowly working away at it, lots of things that are up in the air, lots of lessons to learn. Also, sending out some emails with quotes, and I know when I don't put what's a good next step? Reaching out to you Wednesday at such and such a time and keeping some accountability so things come full circle. That's one of the things for me to improve on. So that's top of mind, because I've learned that. I think there's a few outstanding, actually there's about 4 outstanding items that I didn't put a deadline with an agreed upon next step, as far as, okay, well, if I don't hear from you back about a schedule by such and such a date, I'll reach back out to you. Or if I don't find out information on quantities or a date, anyhow. So learning that one, that's all I got for today. Looking forward to making this work tomorrow again. Thanks again.